You are not alone. Not in the way you usually think about it. Not in the vague, philosophical sense. In the literal, biological, walking beside you at the river sense. For roughly 400,000 years, another kind of human shared this planet with your ancestors. They buried their dead. They made jewelry. They sat around fires, raised children, and looked up at the same night sky you do. And then, around 40,000 years ago, they vanished. But what if they hadn't? What if, on some cold night in southern Europe, the last band of Neanderthals had found enough food to survive the winter? What if that one small population had pulled through, spread, and kept going, right alongside your ancestors, right up to today? This is not a fantasy. This is a thought experiment grounded in real science. And the answer will make you rethink everything you assume about what it means to be human. Let's go back to the beginning. Neanderthals were not the dim, hunched brutes your textbooks may have shown you. That image was built on a single badly arthritic skeleton found in France in 1856 and then projected onto an entire species. The correction took over a century. Paleoanthropologist Erik Trinkaus spent decades re-examining Neanderthal skeletal remains and found something striking. Their bodies were built for brutal physical endurance, yes. Thick bones, barrel chests, enormous muscle attachment points. But their brains were on average slightly larger than yours. Slightly larger. They used ochre, a red iron pigment, to decorate objects and possibly their own bodies, as excavations at Cueva de los Avions in Spain revealed pigment, use dating back at least 115,000 years, predating modern humans in Europe by tens of thousands of years. They placed eagle talons on cords to wear as personal ornaments. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologist Ralph Seletsky found what appeared to be flowers buried with the dead. Evidence, at minimum, of ritual attention to death, possibly of grief. Neanderthals were not pre-human. They were a parallel human. So why did they disappear? The honest answer is, we still don't fully know. Climate shifts made their environment increasingly unstable. Modern humans moving into Europe likely brought diseases to which Neanderthals had no immunity. A dynamic anthropologist, Milford Wolpoff, has described as one of the most underappreciated factors in their decline. Competition for resources narrowed. Their population, always small and scattered across isolated pockets, may simply have been too fragmented to recover when pressures compounded. And here's the twist that genetics has handed us in the last 15 years. They didn't fully disappear. In 2010, geneticist Ron Pabo and his team at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology sequenced the Neanderthal genome for the first time, one of the most significant achievements in the history of science. What they found reshuffled everything. If you are of non-African descent, between 1 and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. That DNA is not inert. It shapes your immune system. It influences your risk for certain diseases. It may affect how your body responds to cold. Neanderthals are already inside you. They just didn't survive as a people. Now, what if they had? Picture the world around 10,000 years ago. The last ice age is retreating. Humans are beginning to settle, to plant, to build the first permanent villages in the Fertile Crescent. In the real timeline, Homo sapiens is the only human species on Earth. But in this version, pockets of Neanderthals still occupy parts of Europe and Western Asia. What happens at the border? The most likely outcome, based on what genetics already shows us happened in smaller doses, is not war. It is contact, exchange, and interbreeding, more of what was already occurring. Researcher Joao Zilho has argued for years that the boundary between Neanderthals and modern humans was always more porous than the extinction narrative implies. Tools, ideas, and genes move across that boundary. They already did. More Neanderthals surviving means more of that exchange, at greater scale, for longer. Your genome, in this alternate world, might carry 8, 10, 12% Neanderthal DNA. Your neighbors might carry more. The line between the two species, already blurry in real genetics, dissolves further with every generation. But there's a harder question underneath this one. Would Neanderthals have remained a separate people, with their own cultures, their own languages, their own ways of understanding the world? Or would they have been absorbed genetically and culturally into the expanding wave of Homo sapiens population growth? This is not an abstract question. It is the exact question that anthropologists like Chris Stringer at the Natural History Museum in London have studied through the lens of what actually did happen to other archaic human populations. The pattern is sobering. Small populations in contact with large, fast-growing ones tend to be absorbed, not preserved. Not through violence alone, through simple demographic weight. In a world where Neanderthals survived in small numbers, survival of their distinct identity, their specific tools, their burial practices, their ornamental traditions, would have required something modern humans rarely extend to smaller neighboring peoples even today. Space, autonomy, and a deliberate choice not to overwhelm. There's a version of the what if where Neanderthals thrive in isolated refuge zones, northern Scandinavia, Siberia, mountain highlands, developing distinct traditions over thousands of years, trading with Homo sapien settlements at the margins, influencing and being influenced in return. Archaeology suggests this kind of long-term coexistence happened with Denisovans, another archaic human group, in pockets of Asia for far longer than once assumed. There's another version, darker and more likely, where the sheer reproductive expansion of Homo sapiens, the same species that within 10,000 years would cover every continent, drain rivers, reshape coastlines, and drive thousands of species to extinction, simply outpaces Neanderthal recovery, even with the best intentions, even without open conflict. The Neanderthal would become, in this version, the first indigenous population of the modern world, numerically small, culturally distinct, under pressure from all sides. What would they have given us if they had lasted? Their cold adaptation genes are already documented. Variants affecting keratin production, the protein in your skin and hair, that likely gave Neanderthals advantages in cold climates appear in modern European and Asian genomes right now. Trace back to Neanderthal integration, as researchers at the Broad Institute have identified. More Neanderthals surviving means more of those variants circulating in the human population. Potentially stronger cold resistance across northern populations. Potentially different immune profiles that could have altered the trajectory of certain diseases. But the deeper gift might have been cognitive. Not because Neanderthals were smarter, but because they were different. A second human lineage. Thinking alongside us for another 10,000 years would have been a check on particular kind of monoculture that happens when one group's way of understanding the world becomes the only way. Different tool traditions, different relationships with landscape, different stories told around different fires. We lost something when the last Neanderthal died. The tragedy is not just that a species went extinct. Species go extinct. The tragedy is that we lost a mind, a way of being human, that had been refined over 400,000 years and will never exist again. The last Neanderthal who ever lived had thoughts and fears, and knowledge accumulated across a lifetime. And all of it disappeared with them. You carry a small remnant of them inside your cells, a fraction of their legacy written into your immune responses, your skin, your tolerance for cold northern winters. In a very real biological sense, they never completely vanished. They merged. They became part of what you are. But you will never know what they would have become. And on some quiet morning, when you wake up before your alarm in the dark and the cold, when your body knows something your mind is still catching up to, some ancient, wordless knowledge about temperature and time and survival, it is worth wondering whose instinct that really is. Maybe it is not entirely yours. Maybe, for just a moment, someone else is waking up with you.